Now, they have capitalism wrapped up. They are as powerful as they ever need to be. They can print their own money. They don't need to earn it. All they need to do is wait for other human beings to do the hard work, print it and take it off them. And thus, this is the world we live in. And they've done this since the Napoleonic Wars, when they funded both sides of the war and bought up England and became the most powerful wealth force on the whole of the planet. Now, in capitalism, here is socialism. In capitalism, a free market capitalist system, which we don't have at present, anyone can rise up, become wealthy and powerful, and challenge them. It's a possibility. In socialism, there's no possibility anymore. This is why they want this out and this in. And the truth behind all of it is that you can sit and shout and scream about the politicians all you want. If you are not strong enough to overcome your own lower nature, then you are part of the problem.
Weapons always close to end, for he has seen too much hatred. Only weapon that he chooses is love, universal call, now for justice.
Hi guys, so I thought I would do a little video because it's of huge alignment with what I speak about regarding Fabian socialists and the elite, about the G20 and the reactions that we're seeing from the youth within Hamburg, from the far left scene, the left scene, Black Bloc, Antifa, and how they are utterly, completely, sadly and painfully for eye to watch in the lap of what the elite want them to be doing. Those young people out on the street protesting, even if they are protesting violently or non-violently, are ultimately playing into the hands of the elite, and they have no idea that they are. Now, the reason behind this is very simple, and I'll get on to that. But the problem you have is that these young people can't see what is going on, because many of them are educated either from the wrong sources, or many of them are coming from their emotions, so they have no idea how to create some form of activism or genuine impact with regards to change on the planet. Instead, they resort to protest. Now, what is protest in the most part? Protest is saying, you're in charge of me, but you're not doing it how I want you to do it. I would rather all those young people got very disciplined and centered and educated, and instead of saying, I want you to be in charge of me in a different way, they said, let me rise up and let me try to be in charge. Let me try to change society by forming organized groups, such as the groups that the elitists have formed to rule and run our countries. Now, ultimately, I've just said that they are playing straight into my dogs are rolling around, if you can hear that in the background. They have played straight into the arms of the elite, and they can't see it because they have fallen for the governed awakening that the elite need them to have. The people who control this planet are very disciplined human beings. However, sadly, they are also often persons who adhere to the abandonment of morality, because they say within their belief system, which is Luciferian, that both ends of the spectrum are still ends of the same spectrum, and thus if you behave badly or if you behave goodly, you are still expressing the energy of life, or as they believe it to be, the source of creation, and thus they say the abandonment of morality is fine. Do whatever you need to do to get what you need to do. Now, how have the youth walked into this trap? Well, the problem is, and I say this quite often, but for those of you who haven't heard my other videos and are watching this because you're interested in G20 and Antifa and Black Bloc and so on, many of the young people dwell inside this reality here. Imagine this is your reality, and inside there you have politics, media, the financial system. But you also have other things within there as well, which are emotional attachment, emotional belief, opinion, You have all of these things inside this reality. But we all know that beyond that reality of opinion and emotional attachment and politics and finance and industry and war and the military-industrial complex and the banking cartels and the central banks, that we have another reality which, for instance, these trees behind me abide within. They don't abide inside that human reality. They are outside of that reality. And they just do what they are supposed to do. They express themselves with their fullest potential without having any thought of this, that, or the other. They just are. And they do it from a different space than a human mind is in when you're in there. And the human mind can go to that same space. And it's ultimately a place of stillness. For anyone who's done any study on Buddhism or the Hindu scripture, you'll know that this sea of stillness that we can reach is ultimately the same place that non-sentient life appears to dwell within constantly. As a constant collective, a constant working of the collective expressing itself without argument, without emotional attachment. It just does it. And I call that place the field, because it's easier to have a label for it. So if you're inside this nonsensical mess, you need to get to the field. And the problem is all these young people try to get up to the field, but there is so much pulling them back down. Some of the things that pull them back down, clearly from what we're seeing at the G20, emotional attachment and inability to control their emotion, their lower nature. So you're rising up to the field, perhaps in meditation, stillness, a state of maturity, and all of a sudden you get pulled back down by your ego, who is chattering at you and saying, come back down here, come back to this reality where I've got some sort of presence at least. And you see it by this behavior of people. Not all of the leftists are doing it in these protests, but the far left, who are getting angry and violent, are running around like chimpanzees. And what's that going to do? That's not going to change a thing. It's the most weakened state a human being can be in. It utterly is. To throw fireworks and to throw glass bottles at men and women, sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, grandparents, aunties, uncles. People that you might well have, the day before, said good morning to. Or you might well have said excuse me to in the shop. The day later, because you can't control your emotions and you behave like an animal, you're throwing things at them and trying to hurt them. Because they, to you, represent this enemy, this fascist overlord of society which is oppressing you. But here's the problem with that. That oppressor that you're seeing, it's not the police officer, obviously, it's not the police officer. But the problem is, not actually is it your government. And this is where the youth haven't got a clue at the moment. And this is why I want people to learn. So what other things happen is they come up out of this reality, and memories of the media brings them back into that emotional quagmire. And so they get stirred up again. Or other people have dependency on this reality, which is normal because that's the way it's designed, and they might have to pay their bills to feed themselves, so they rise up to the field, but then they say, well, I've got to go to work and feed my children, and so that has to be, that is part of it. But you must find space to get up here, because if you can get up there, you can then watch this. It's like having a room filled with people which is so chaotic and crazy, and then you have one of those mirrored walls, and you can go into the room with the mirrored wall and watch everybody inside with silence. And you can observe their behaviours, and you can say, okay, collectively they are socialising in this room and they're talking, but I don't know exactly what they're talking about. This is getting to the field. You're watching, you're observing this chaos. And that is the most efficient space a human being can be in, is in the field. That's where you can create forms of activism that actually have an impact on the planet. Instead of going out with a banner, be you violent or non-violent, and saying, you rule me, but I want you to rule me better than this. Why don't you discipline yourself, work hard, and be someone who creates the systems or influences the systems that are ruling us? Get educated, get informed, get knowledgeable. You see, from the field, you can do that. you can implement and create original thought outside of this as an extension to this, original thoughts, original ideas, to start changing the shape of that. Because at present, that is so heavily governed by people who are able to reach the field but have no moral guidance once they get there, that they have begun to control this in a way that the materiality and the wealth benefit and the inequality helps them to remain in that elevated state of functioning, and thus they get to try and manifest their desires for the collective planet within there. Now, this is very well designed, this reality. And this reality is so well designed on purpose because this is the most valuable resource, is how a human being thinks inside your society. And there is a government beyond your government who are working out how to get you to think what they need you to think. You just don't know they are there, and you don't see it happening. But it is there, and it is happening. Now, all of these young people out there, we have that group who are behaving aggressively, and had I not been brought up in a society where this forces you into the animal nature, where the elites purposely weaken the state of human beings so they behave like animals on the streets, then I would say they need governance. But because I've grown up in a society where I know they are a product of a design by the elitists, that behaving like aggressive chimpanzees comes from the overindulgence in the wrong diet, comes from being inebriated every weekend and your brain function being diluted compared to a human who doesn't need to participate constantly in an alcoholic drug all of the time just because society says you're allowed to. Your brain will not work as well. On top of that, you've got the media pushing the buttons of these people, and then you've got them so misguided. Of course, there's economic inequality, but not to the degree where I am, where we are fighting daily to get children out of child labour, children as young as 7. The economic inequality in the West exists, but at least there's a level of security there where you have a very small minority who might go hungry on the streets, but the vast majority have an option via the system they live in. But that economic inequality creates this in them as well. But the media and the way it has forced young people to abandon any form of morality, and with it any connection to the field, their strongest state of being, is why they are behaving like chimpanzees on the streets of Hamburg, not even understanding that their behaviour, that they are manifesting because they're angry at the elite, is what the elite want from them. You see, the elites want to change our planetary system. They don't like capitalism. And you have all of these people saying, capitalists, game over. Well, actually, the capitalists are powerful enough that they want it to be game over because they see a problem with capitalism. And I'm not just pulling this from thin air. I'm going to explain how this has gone on with facts of your reality that you can observe from the field. But if you're in this media telling you this, that and the other, and you're always listening to TV and news, then you'll never understand this stuff because you'll just buy into that reality. And of course, they're not going to tell you this side of things, how they've made that the way it is and how they want that capitalist structure to be replaced with a socialist one to benefit themselves, not you. So the elites have wanted to move from capitalism to socialism. Now, it's about power and control for them. If a new company comes up and it's looking good and powerful, the central banks can print the money and buy it. And the men who own the central banks is not your government. Fractional reserve banking, central banks are privately owned all over the planet. The same families own and control them. If you don't know that and you're protesting on the streets, you don't know what's going on. You don't understand the system you're protesting. So you need to stop and get educated and get effective and disciplined. The same people who own the IMF control the World Bank, the Rothschild dynasty. They control the central banks as well. Now, they have capitalism wrapped up. They are as powerful as they ever need to be. They can print their own money. They don't need to earn it. All they need to do is wait for other human beings to do the hard work, print it and take it off them. And thus this is the world we live in. And they've done this since the Napoleonic Wars, when they funded both sides of the war and bought up England and became the most powerful wealth force on the whole of the planet. And then they headed over to America and carried on doing so there. Now, in capitalism, here is capitalism, here is socialism. In capitalism, a free market capitalist system, which we don't have at present, anyone can rise up, become wealthy and powerful, and challenge them. It's a possibility. In socialism, there's no possibility anymore. This is why they want this out and this in. They have eroded faith in capitalism by design. It started in Frankfurt University under Lenin. Great minds, albeit sinister, sussed out that industrialized nations, to become agreeable with socialism, would require a thing called the Long March, which you can read about in the prison notebooks. The Long March is basically cultural Marxism, destroying the faith inside the Western systems, in the industrialized nations, eroding the family unit, eroding Christian morals, not the belief in Jesus, but the morality of it. That it's not okay to stumble around drunk on a weekend, that it's not okay to have multiple sexual partners, that it's not okay, so on and so forth. This strength that we used to find in family units is absent from our modern day life quite often, sadly. Now, they designed that, and then when the Reich rose up, they moved to Columbus University. From there, they implemented it. Sexual revolution was not a natural evolution of humanity. It was designed to force the consciousness, the collective mind, into a certain position on the planet, and with it to erode the strength of the family unit within industrialized nations. And then from within, they were long marching cultural Marxism, bringing in communism through the back door, which is ultimately what socialism is. But they are cheering for the end of capitalism because they don't understand who the enemy is that they're facing. They should be cheering names, families, clans, if you will. They should be cheering the systems like fractional reserve banking that give them their power to create the inequality and the suffering that they are fed up with seeing, and so am I. Instead, they're saying down with capitalism. Okay? You've walked into the hands of the elite. They want you to protest capitalism. They want you to accept what many people have heard of. Every world leader has used the term, a new world order. A term first announced by George Bush Sr. 11 years to the day on September 11th before that terrible tragedy, which just so happened to change the consciousness of the planet into a position where indeed it was quite happy to start looking at new systems because something's not right. These people protesting are the manifestation and the result of critical theory, designed and implemented by the elites to bring the youth into a state where they are against capitalism and all for their new world order socialist government. And the truth behind all of it is that you can sit and shout and scream about the politicians all you want. If you are not strong enough to overcome your own lower nature, then you are part of the problem. Because if you can learn to overcome your own lower nature, if you can learn to fast, to become disciplined, if you can learn to reach the field, if you can learn to be in the best alchemical, vibrational, mental state a human being can be in, which is here, in a state of stillness, without opinion, without emotion, where you just see reality for what it is, where you can hear original thought and you can solve things with original thought. If you can't get there, then you're not as effective as you can be. And sadly, all these young people caught inside that protest are nowhere near there. And I have great empathy for them because it's not their fault. Because the elites have tried to make you into human animals instead of human beings. Your morality is under attack. Your time is under attack. Your health is under attack. And a lot of the time, the strongest version of you is actually under attack by yourself. Because the weakest part of your mind has been programmed by the society that the elites have created to govern you. And the inequality and the oppression is not coming from capitalism or capitalists, it's coming from families who follow a Luciferian belief system. If you don't know their names, if you don't know how they're doing it and you don't know what they believe, then you haven't got a chance at stopping them. Because all you're going to do is protest capitalism, insert socialism, and they're still going to be there as the ones who insert the new systems that govern you. Now, the head capitalist you can think of as Rothschild. Rothschild funds the London School of Economics, which was started by Fabian socialists to further Fabian socialist propaganda. All traceable history, it's a fact. They even display the wolves in sheep's clothing logo proudly on the main building of the London School of Economics. This is how they operate, as wolves in sheep's clothing. Why would a head capitalist fund a school which has created countless professors all over the planet who are teaching economics if he doesn't want socialism? Because he wants socialism. And what's that school doing? It's teaching a curriculum given to it by whom? By socialists who want to erode the capitalist system, create the imbalances and the crashes that are required within there, so as people also erode their faith in capitalism, so they'll accept a new socialist system. Because it's damn hard to get people to give up the things that they've earned in life. We've learned this in every war, and Karl Marx was wrong. Karl Marx was wrong. You can't get people to surrender capitalism. You've got to slowly make them from within believe they are. And those young people are the weakest first ones to start following what the elites want them to do. So, if you want to protest something, if you want to change something, change yourself. Overcome your lower nature, then teach the man next to you how to overcome his. Teach people that there is even a lower nature to overcome. If you don't do that and you're on the street yelling and screaming, your lower nature won. In the Bible it's represented by Samson fighting a lion, the lion being the beast, the lower nature. It's represented by David fighting Goliath. And he must overcome this giant, which is his ego and his lower nature. And he does it by conquering the 5 senses, by taking 5 stones and striking the giant here, by activating his pineal gland in meditation. And in doing so, knowing the perfect timing and understanding the synchronicities to manifest in the best possible way that a human being can manifest while connected to the collective. Consciousness that sits in the field, where things like trees grow and plants grow. If we don't even know there's a lower nature to overcome, if we don't even know we need to conquer our 5 senses, we'll always be ruled by those who can. But sadly, those who can, who have no moral governance. Because that is the state of things at present. Much love. Bye.